One of the most important things to do before going to raid is deciding which map to go. Every single map is different, including the night variant of each of them. And today, I will be ranking them. Before we get started, we need to lay the criteria for the ratings of each map. Each criteria will be scored out of 10. 1 probably being bad and 10 probably being very good based on each specific criteria I will list in the video. The first criteria that we have is the size of the map. The size of the map is pretty important as it determines a bunch of varying factors such as how fast you are likely to encounter other players. Next we have the loot pool of the map. This is defined by important areas such as vaults and likelihoods of important items such as keycards or GPUs. And finally, we have the learning curve or difficulty of the map, as this defines how beginner friendly or unfriendly a map is based on its layout, size, player spawn points, or any other miscellaneous stuff. Now on to our first map. Missile Silo is quite confidently one of the easiest maps to raid, and it's in my opinion one of the more beginner friendly maps to start out with. It gets a 10 on the size of the map as it's mainly small with most of its size being vertical, which helps with preventing players from encountering each other too fast. And encounters are in cramped tight spaces, which means there are a lot of opportunities for people to rat, but it also makes fights semi-fair for everyone, as most fights will be face-to-face instead of far range, which is generally unfavorable. The loot pool, unfortunately, tanks quite a bit at a 3. Due to the small nature of the map, it's less likely to spawn any good loot in general, save the possible purple keycard spawn and like the 2 streamer items in the kitchen area. Like most maps, it has a purple vault that has some fairly decent loot. And yeah, the only thing that bumps up the rating is the possibility of a special item called the Yorick Skull, which allows you to unlock a loot location in another map. And Kurtek, the boss that has a small percentage chance of spawning on the map. And if you manage to take him and his squad down, you'll get a bunch of good loot like high tier mass, armor, decent weaponry, and the Kurtek exclusive mass and full auto SKS. I would give the difficulty of the map a 7, as since the map is on the smaller side, it means and it only has a player count of 6, so which means that the amount of people that you will have to fight is much less, and the only reason it's not a 10 is because of the verticality of the map can sometimes be confusing, and the addition of a possible boss in the mix, low-level players are more likely unable to take out Kurtek unless they're in a group or maybe they find a bunch of grenades or something. So with all that in total, I think Missile Silo goes into C tier. It's not bad. It's a great way to learn the game initially, but it is not a long-term map that you should hit very often. Alright, and next up we have the island of Tabor. Is a very interesting map. It is one of the largest maps in the game, and it in between the landmarks, it also has a bunch of like barren land and trees everywhere. It gets 4 on the size due to it being a very large map, but also not enough to stop this from happening.
Here, Sean.
But that hurt, didn't it, Timmy?
Oh my god, I didn't even put the 94 on my AW. I'm sorry, Jalop. It's probably
I just spawn killed the Timmies that spawned by that rock over there.
It gets a 6 in terms of loot pool due to you know, it being a large map. There's a lot of chance for the random loot to give you good items. There are 3 possible GPU spawns and about 3 to 4 possible purple keycard spawns and 1 orange keycard spawn. There are 2 streamer item spawns, and there are various special items like a Mahina, and also like other special items like flight recorders and car batteries that have fixed spawns as well. It does also have a purple vault, which is pretty good, which makes the island pretty desirable for loot runs. But unfortunately, I'll have to give the difficulty a 4, as it's incredibly difficult to navigate the map due to numerous factors like, like the open land leaving you exposed for long range gunfights, high vantage points that can give you and your enemies advantages in fights. 12 players spawning on the map means you have to compete for loot in general, and you also have to have a lot more fights than Silo, and stuff like Watchtower Phoenix and landmines, making certain areas difficult to access or just straight up inaccessible. Overall, I'll give Island B tier. While it's not beginner friendly, it has a lot of good loot that makes up for it. I would put it in A tier, but we have its older, better brother, which is... So Night Island is essentially the same map, but it's entirely shrouded in darkness due to it being, well, night. It can be a blessing or a curse. Unless you have NVGs, navigating the island is even more difficult, so if you are low level and you're just starting out, you should stay away from Night Island. It literally has a barrier entry, it's NVGs. And no flashlights do not work because you can barely see anything with that, and you are a beacon, which just is gonna get you killed. The night and it just being dark in general allows you to stay hidden better, and it exposes you less in those sight lines that we mentioned earlier. The size map rating stays the same at 4 due to the map being relatively unchanged for the most part. However, the loot pool goes up to a 9. As night maps currently have buff loot spawns, it is more likely to get higher tier loot from crates than Day Island, or just any map in general. And Night Island also includes a special mini boss, or, well, it's a special group of phoenixes called the Fish Cultists. They are more dangerous than regular phoenixes due to having better weaponry and mass, and being fully geared. When spawned, and if you manage to defeat them, they drop numerous different good guns and armor. I think MP7s and maybe VSS Ventures's. Inside the church, the trapdoor that is typically always closed will open, and inside the basement of the church will contain various loot and a guaranteed GPU and purple keycard. And finally, on the lectern of the church, there's a unique UMP. Most things stay same on Night Island, other than that, with like the GPU keycard spawns. But in Night Island specifically, there also includes a extra streamer item spawn in labs, which is a lightsaber, if I believe. Night Island, unfortunately, will get a 1 in terms of difficulty, which means that it's just absolutely terrible. The lack of light means that NVGs are essential to run Night Island. It's literally the barrier entry. You do not run Night Island unless you have an NVG. And in addition to the map size staying the same, the darkness also means it's harder to see players, which makes engagements even more difficult to, if you just look around. So the darkness can cover you, but it can also stop you from seeing other people as well. And in addition to the cultists, it's not as difficult as Kurtek. I will say they still do pose a more substantial threat than your average Phoenix, due to the weaponry and armor they possess. Overall, not something for beginners to tackle as well. I would probably recommend running a couple day islands, getting a feel of the map, and then after you get an NVG, and then you come to Night Island for the abundance of loot that it offers. And so just because it is just a better island variant, it will go into A tier, just above the regular island of Tabor. Next up, we have... So, Matkamies. It's an urban environment lots of buildings and choke points. I would say it gets a 6 in terms of map size. It is fairly large, not as large as Island, from when I've played it, but it doesn't feel so due to a lot of the buildings blocking sightlines. I think there's a couple of places where you'll be really exposed, but uh that is not very often in Matka. It gets a 7 in terms of loot, as Matka promises a lot of good loot. It has a cathedral that occasionally has a phoenix with an MP7 on the altar, which is MP7's a really good gun. There's a unique location near the cathedral called the House of Scott, which requires the Yorick skull from Silo to enter. And a museum that has a chance to spawn a unique boss called the Collector, which drops some really good gear. A light machine gun that cannot be bought or found anywhere else. A special helmet, a special chest rig, and a green key card. Along with a squad who also drop some relatively good gears, AKMs, MP7s, that kind of stuff. It gets a 5 in terms of difficulty. The buildings block most of the lines of sight, which makes encounters more face-to-face. But 12 players can spawn on Matka, which means that it has the same amount of possible encounters as Island, while having them happen faster due to the smaller size of the map. And well, the inclusion of a very potential, very difficult boss, well, if fought properly anyways, because there's currently a really easy way to defeat Collector with just throwing grenades, which I'm pretty sure will be fixed eventually anyways. It just makes the map significantly more difficult than Tabor Knight. So because of that, Matka Mies goes into B tier. So now we have naturally the variant of Matka Mies, which is Matka Mies Knight is probably my favorite map of the wipe so far. It gets the same 6 in terms of map size due to not much changing, but the loot rating goes up to 9. It is the same loot buff as Islands, but it has the advantage over Island in terms of having 2 purple vaults and a boss on the map. Oh, I didn't mention 2 purple vaults in Matka Mies Day. Well, they're both there, but one of them requires you to have the Yorick skull to open it. The Yorick skull purple vault is significantly better than the bridge vault, so do with that what you will. But yeah, it also has the same loot buff as Night Island, but the difficulty is not actually the same as Night Island. It's actually at a 5, and that is because Matka Knight does not have the same darkness level as Night Island. Matka Knight is actually bright enough that you can run it without NVGs at all. There's the occasional dark spot here and there, but if you run around, you'll realize that it is not dark at all. So because it is not particularly difficult, and because it has the night loot buff, 2 purple vaults, and all the loot prospects and collector, I think Matka Knight deserves its spot in the S tier. Hey, you got our first S tier, baby, and I think this is gonna be the only S tier. Just a really great map to run, because the problem that Night Islands have, that is the darkness and need requiring NVGs, is completely taken away, but the loot is just so much better. All right, so S tier. All right, next map we have is. So Matka Underground consists of enclosed tight corner. It has a sewers and a train station, and the old bunker from the beta of Tabor. It gets an 8 in terms of map size due to the tight encounter spaces, allowing players to not encounter each other as quickly, and more face-to-face fights, less ratting in general. I think it unfortunately gets a 5 in terms of loot pool. It being larger than Silo allows it to have better loot, and it also has a possible GPU spawn in the old bunker, and it also has 1 green and 1 purple vault, although the purple vault is the worst purple vault in the game specifically. Green vault is the second best vault in the game. It has a lot of loot inside of it. Underground also has the possible chance of spawning a red key card, which is very, very valuable, but we will talk about it once we get to it. But the difficulty, well, the difficulty is not that hard. It's at I'll give it a 9. And that's because there are not a lot of difficult fights in general. Most of them are close quarters. There are no noticeable bosses or mini bosses. The phoenixes are pretty spread out and few and far in between. And the thing is that the devs actually even improved the quality of life of Underground in general by making it brighter recently, and they also made it easier to navigate with like directional graffitis, which will show you where to go specifically. So due to having not a lot of great loot in general except for the green, I would have to put it in C tier, same as Silo, because you really only run Matka Underground to get red key card or run a green key card. And so that brings us to our final map, which is Chodov Mall. Oh boy. The most recent map that was added to the game, and it's hard. It gets a 9 for map size. It's relatively small map, but I think it rivals the Silo in terms of map size. Maybe a little bit larger and way brighter. Also, there are long sight lights and for far range fights, and also like winding halls for close range encounters. So you get the whole feast. The loot pool gets a rating of 8, as Mall has, and I kid you not, 4 possible GPU spawns, 3 in the tech store itself, and 1 at the parking basement. And there's also 1 possible spawn for both purple and orange keycard. And the most notable feature about Chodov Mall is the Centurion Armament Vault, which is the red keycard. It is hands down the best vault in the game, and I personally have run it once, and I tallied my earnings, and it counted upwards of about 500,000 in Karuna's worth of loot. Every other vault was either around 400,000 or 300,000 and below. So the red vault is a significant markup, but the difficulty of the map is a 1, which is to say that it's incredibly difficult. It is a relatively small map, but unlike Silo, which only has a player count of 6, Mall has a player count of 12, which means that you have double the amount of possible players to kill, and with the relatively small map size, you are more likely to have fights happen faster at the start of the raid. Not to mention that Mall has a relatively high amount of phoenixes on the map for a map that small. So you would have to go and ration your ammunition between fighting people, fighting phoenixes. Fighting in Mall is very hectic, and it happens really, really fast. And there are a lot of places where you can get caught out in the open, and there are also a lot of places where you can have close range fights. I would say Mall is probably the closest thing you'll ever get to a deathmatch in Tabor. Because of that, I think our final map deserves a spot in the A tier, because the Centurion Armaments Vault is just that good. And I think this map, while it being the hardest, it is also the most fun one to run. So there goes my list for the maps in Ghost of Tabor. I guess I shouldn't mention that this tier list is purely objective at the start of the video, but too late for that now, I guess. I hope you understand my perspective and reasonings, and if you don't, why not put them in the comments, or just berate me if that's what you want. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Peace!